December 1, 2001. Buenos Aires. A computer scientist named Eduardo wakes up, turns on the news. And here's two words that will end his financial life as he knows it. Corralito. Every bank account in Argentina frozen. He had $77,000 in dollar-denominated savings, not pesos. He'd specifically chosen dollars because he remembered the hyperinflation of 1989 to 3,000% annually, and he refused to be caught twice. He had studied history. He had adapted. He had done everything right. Within 90 days, the government forcibly converted every dollar account in the country to pesos at 1.4 pesos per dollar, a rate they invented. The open market immediately moved to 4 pesos per dollar. Eduardo's $77,000 became the purchasing equivalent of roughly $25,000. He lost $52,000 not to a market crash, not to a bad investment, but to a conversion rate chosen by a government minister at a desk in Buenos Aires. 20 years later, in an interview, he said it plainly, of the $77,000 I had in the bank, I lost $40,000 in the Corralito. That December was terrible. There were riots everywhere. He had done everything a responsible person was supposed to do. It didn't matter. Historian context 145 to 330. Here is what most financial commentary on Argentina gets wrong. They treat it like an anomaly, a Latin American problem, a governance failure unique to the global South. That framing is historically illiterate and dangerous. In 1913, Argentina's GDP per capita was comparable to Germany's. Buenos Aires was called the Paris of South America. The country had a vast educated middle class, fertile agricultural land, and deep European immigrant roots that built strong institutional traditions. This was not a failed state. As late as 1998, the IMF was publicly calling Argentina a model for the developing world. They weren't lying to you. They genuinely believed it, because the surface metrics looked clean. What the surface metrics hid was this: the government had pegged the peso to the US dollar at a 1-to-1 ratio. 1 peso, $1, guaranteed by law. It controlled inflation brilliantly. It also made Argentine exports uncompetitive and quietly strangled the economy. Between 1998 and 2001, Argentina was already in recession. Unemployment climbed past 20%. 40,000 businesses closed. The government kept borrowing internationally to paper over the gap. The architecture of collapse was fully visible if you knew what to look for. The betrayal -330 to 530. Here is the part of this story that gets left out of most tellings, and it's the most important part. By mid-2001, -1 months before the freeze, senior executives at Argentina's major banks already knew the system was heading toward collapse. We have documented evidence of this. It is not conspiracy. It is recorded history. Those executives quietly contacted their largest corporate clients and directed them to move deposits offshore, out of Argentina, out of the system, out of reach. While that private evacuation was underway, those same banks continued publicly advising their middle-class customers to keep saving. Your money is safe with us. By December 1st, when the Corralito was announced, $15 billion, roughly 20% of total deposits, had already quietly exited the country. The exit was orderly. It was invisible, and it was only available to people with the right connections. This is a pattern with a name in financial history. Economists call it asymmetric information failure. I call it what it is. The connected got out, and the rules followers got locked in. On December 31, 2001, Argentina defaulted on $81.3 billion in sovereign debt, the largest sovereign default in recorded history at that point. Government bondholders spent years in legal proceedings, recovering cents on the dollar. 5 presidents in 12 days. Then came the Pesification, the forced conversion, and the arithmetic that destroyed a generation of careful savers, who survived. 5:30 to 9 o'clock. Now let's talk about the survivors. Because Argentina didn't just collapse, it reorganized. And what it reorganized into is one of the most extraordinary economic experiments of the modern era. By May 2002, 6 million Argentines, roughly 15% of the population, were participating in a parallel economy. No banks, no pesos, no government oversight. It processed an estimated $400 million in goods and services annually and had its own currency, its own exchanges, its own price mechanisms. This was not chaos. This was civic organization at scale. It was called the Red de Truc, the barter network, and its origins trace back to May 1, 1995, a garage in Bernal, a suburb south of Buenos Aires. Three neighbors, Horacio Covas, Carlos Dancico, and Ruben Rivera, started a simple weekly exchange. Neighbors brought what they made. They received printed notes called creditos representing the value of their labor. They spent creditos on what others brought. No bank, no intermediary, no institution that could freeze it. By early 2001, before the Corralito even hit, 500,000 Argentines were already bartering regularly. The network was already there when the crisis arrived. That timing is everything. When the freeze came, millions of Argentines climbed into the truck lifeboats. 5,000 barter nodes spread across the country. Food, clothing, medical consultations, dental work, legal advice, carpentry, electrical repairs, all traded in creditos. A BBC correspondent interviewed a participant named Marcella Ricca, who described it this way: "You'd offer whatever you had. You might repair a washing machine and get 6 eggs, or do someone's accounts and they'd fix your car." A psychologist named Ana Lopez had lost her job, her husband's factory, and her savings. She brought her professional services to her local truck. Within 6 months she had 5 regular patients and was coordinating a new node. Her skills could not be frozen. They could not be converted at a government rate. That is the dividing line between who got through and who didn't. The forensic breakdown, 9 o'clock to 13:30. Let me give you the documented asset by asset forensic breakdown. Not theory, outcomes. What held value, practical skills with immediate utility. The plumber, the dentist, the woman making empanadas, all maintained income entirely independent of the banking system. Their value lived inside them. No decree could touch it. Physical dollars held outside the banking system. The Corralito froze bank accounts. It could not reach cash stored under mattresses or inside walls. Argentines who held physical dollars outside the system maintained full purchasing power through the entire crisis. As the peso fell from 1-1 to 4-1, someone holding $10,000 in physical cash found their local purchasing power quadruple. This is why, 2 decades later, when rumors of a new Corralito circulate in Argentina, citizens immediately withdraw cash and take it home. The institutional memory of 2001 is still active. It is behavioral economics written in trauma. Community relationships. Surveys suggest approximately 1/3 of Buenos Aires participated in neighborhood assemblies during the crisis. The truck worked because the relationships and infrastructure existed before the emergency. Social capital, in Argentina 2001, was directly convertible to food security. What went to zero? Peso-denominated savings converted at a government rate while the real rate was 4 times higher. Government bonds, defaulted on December 31, 2001. Holders spent years in litigation recovering partial amounts. The brutal arithmetic, the computer scientist with $77,000 in a bank account walked away with the purchasing power of roughly $25,000. The middle-class Argentine who held $20,000 in physical dollars outside the system, maintained practical skills, and had community relationships, walked away intact. The pattern 1330 to 1530. Argentina is not history. Argentina is a template. The mechanism that produced the Corralito has repeated itself in recognizable forms. Turkey, 2020 to 2022. President Erdogan fired 3 central bank governors and replaced them with loyalists who cut interest rates even as inflation surged. By the end of 2021, inflation had reached 36%. The lira lost 44% of its value that year alone. By mid-2022, annual inflation exceeded 78%. The central bank's net foreign exchange reserves went negative. The bank was borrowing reserves from domestic institutions just to report a positive number on paper. Turks who understood what they were watching moved into physical dollars, euros, and gold. Stores began pricing in US dollars. The informed exit happened first. Most people felt the full impact after the window had closed. Lebanon, 2019 to 2023. Lebanese banks were offering 10 to 15% annual interest on dollar accounts before the collapse. That number should have been a flashing red signal. High interest rates on deposits are not a sign of a healthy banking system. They are a sign of a system that needs to bribe people to stay inside it. The Lebanese pound collapsed from 1,500 to the dollar to over 90,000 by 2023, a 98% loss in purchasing power in 4 years. Dollar depositors found their accounts converted to pounds at official rates, then watched those official rates become fiction. The data is always present. Most people are not reading the right data. The Fiscal Historian Protocol 1530-1730. Let me give you what the forensic evidence from Argentina actually recommends. Not prepper ideology, not paranoia. 5 things that are documented to have worked. 1. Build skills that cannot be converted. Identify 1 or 2 practical abilities that produce immediate value independent of financial infrastructure. A physical trade, medical knowledge, food preparation, legal or accounting expertise. These are assets that no government decree can reach because they exist inside you. Ana Lopez didn't stop being a psychologist when the Corralito hit. She made her knowledge portable. That is the distinction. 2. Hold physical.